We're here on a momentous day, and that day is the day that one of my very favorite boots, touring boots of all time, the Scarpa F1, is getting replaced. And this time, I know I've said that before, but I'm like 99.7% sure that it's actually gonna happen. And the boot that's gonna replace it is the brand new, hot off the press, Dynafit Ridge Pro. If somebody held a gun to my head and I had to pick one category of boot, touring boot, I could only keep, one category of touring boot, it would be the 1250 gram light but not ultralight touring boot. And Scarpa, it's hard to believe, and I have to talk about Scarpa a little bit, the F1, just to understand how awesome this Dynafit is. Man, they just knocked it out of the park 7 years ago. I can't remember. It's been a long time since this boot in this iteration has come out, and that it has stood the test of time for so long. And really, I've tried to find a boot in the 1250 gram class that would walk and ski better than the F1, and I've failed every time. Either it walked a little bit better, but it skied worse, or vice versa. And one of the common things, or one of the things I finally realized was kind of the special sauce of this boot, is that it has a tongue, but they did like this, this crazy design, kind of there's different pieces and the way they fit together, that it doesn't really inhibit the touring ability, but it makes it ski really, really good. So let's talk about the Dynafit Ridge Pro and how that fits in. 1250 grams. The shell is a tiny bit heavier than the F1 shell. The liner is a tiny bit lighter than the F1 shell. And I have to rant a little bit about one of my current pet peeves in the touring boot industry, is that so many boots, they're trying to hit a weight point and they're doing it with the liner. Like they'll have this awesome boot design, and it's a stiff boot, or it should ski really good, and then if they put a good liner in it, it might come in at like 1200 grams, and they're like, ooh, well, let's get it below 1200. So they put a chintzy thin liner in it, get that weight down, but then you go ski it and you're like, something is wrong here. This should not feel, for a boot that looks like this, it should not feel so terrible. Dynafit did a great job with the liner. Like I said, it's a little bit lighter than the liner that comes in the F1, but it is a real liner with some meat to it. It's worth molding, in my opinion, meaning that there's enough, foam, enough heat moldable foam to make it worthwhile to get, a good heat mold. So let's just talk about how this boot works on the up and on the down. This uses the Hilock system, which, if you've watched maybe our Radical Pro review, you know that I love the Hilock system. This is one of the few ski industry features that I would say is not a gimmick. This is light years better than almost every ski walk mechanism that's out on the market today. Walk mode. One lever comes up, one buckle opens. Now you ask, what about the power strap? Well, when I pull this lever up, it not only unlocks the cuff, and it's not just unlocking a little lever in the back here, but it is actually inside this boot. There's like an interlocking mechanism that when you throw this lever, everything kind of cinches up together and it becomes one piece, one coherent boot, more like an alpine boot. More like an alpine boot is, the cuff and the lower is all riveted and connected together. So when I do that, it releases the cuff, but it also releases some tension on the power strap. And that, you don't understand, well, you probably will understand if you tour a lot, but just not having to fiddle with a power strap on a transition is gold. That is one of the greatest things in a ski touring transition. Walk to ski, it's click down and you're set to go. Ski to walk, up, and you're walking. Range of motion on this boot I don't know what they say, 72 degrees or something like that. Just know that it is as free or more free than a boot like the Scarpa F1. So right there, I was like, check the box. Okay, we've improved part of the equation. And then it comes to the downhill. And again, with that Hoji lock, this boot feels different than every other non-Hoji lock ski touring boot that I've skied. Meaning that by locking, you know, by the way that all connects together, you get this integration between the liner and the shell where, you know, the liner is going to provide some of the stiffness of a boot, but the shell also contributes to that. And in a lot of touring boots, there's kind of a disconnect. Like either the liner you'll kind of feel, or even if it has a tongue, like on the F1, you'll kind of feel the tongue giving you a nice progressive flex. But at some point, this little lever in the back takes over, and you've got like a nice progressive flex, but then you kind of hit a stop as you just kind of yank on the little spine lock mechanism. Or it could be vice versa. Sometimes the entire stiffness of the boot is just hinging on this little lever here, and it's just relying on the boot kind of deforming as you flex forward. And you'll look down at some touring boots when you're flexing them, and you'll see them kind of bulge. You know, that's where the flex is coming from. The Ridge Pro, I feel like flexes very, very evenly. They say progressive flex, just meaning that it is a very stiff boot. I mean, this is their Pro, the Ridge Pro, meaning it's loaded with Grilamid and carbon. So it is a stiff shell, but you don't get that brick wall type stiffness feel. The design of that Hoji lock, keeping everything integrated together, you just feel like there's just one even flex when you're skiing it. Another great feature that, again, I don't think is a gimmick is their little floating tongue. You can look up some videos, they kind of demonstrate that, but you know, when this is walking, you might be able to see the tongue will actually kind of float back and forth. And that also helps when you're cinching your foot down, it will kind of auto adjust almost. So if you have a very high instep like me, or if you have a medium instep, you'll kind of find a sweet spot, and I haven't had any of that clamping feeling on this boot. Probably talk about fit real quick. It is a wide last. I can't remember what they say, 101 or 103. If we're comparing it to the Radical Pro, it is not as wide as the Radical Pro, but it's still wider, I would say, than compared to like an F1. I'd say it's pretty close, maybe a little bit wider than an F1. Instep, again, the Radical Pro has a very high volume. You know, this is just a little bit lower volume, but I would not say this is a low volume boot. This is not like a La Sportiva type boot that is made for low volume feet. I have a wide, medium wide forefoot, very high instep arch, narrowish heel, and I find this boot very comfortable. Again, I did heat mold it. Before I heat molded it, I put a pad on my instep, just so it'd mold a little bit more space there. Came out fine. I've skied this for a couple of weeks. Decently big days. I've skied it mostly with a like mid 100 waisted ski, and the downhill performance is a no-brainer, better than any 1250 gram boot that I've ever used. So back to the last question, does this really replace my Scarpa F1? And I really think the answer is yes. It walks as good or better. I would say better, just that, again, I'm saying Hoji lock like a million times, but that Hoji lock, when you unlock this, that cuff just kind of falls open and it moves so free. And then the ski performance is better. I would say if I can find one thing or one con versus the F1, it might be the fit. The fit of the F1, it was just always so awesome for me. That Intuition liner that comes with it molds so nice. But this Ridge Pro is still very comfortable. And so it's not enough that I would even really consider taking out the F1 versus the Ridge Pro. So there you have it, Dynafit Ridge Pro. I know stock is slim right now. We lucked out and got it on a pre-order, but watch your local ski shops. Skimo Co here in Salt Lake should be getting a full size run sometime soon, I hope, and go jump on it.